Deborah Callahan here. Today, I'm very excited to have Kim Gross with me. Kim is host of the popular podcast Masks Off. Kim is a champion for helping people find out exactly who they are behind the masks. So happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So I thought, instead of an interview, we would just have a chat, because
Love it.
we had such a great first chat the first time that we met. You and I talked about the theme of releasing expectations and how important that is in life and truly living life. So would you like to start off talking about what that means for you?
Absolutely. So on Masks Off, I do talk about all the different masks that we can start to wear to cover up and protect our true selves, right? When we were born and came into the world, we were able to express ourselves truly and fully as little babies and toddlers. If there was mud all over us or food all over us, we weren't like, can't be all messy and so on and so forth. It was the conditioning that came from society, the conditioning that came from our caregivers that started to say who you are inherently is not okay. You need to be someone other than who you are. That was the messaging. Who you are is not okay. So then we started to put these masks on. Oh, okay, I can't be myself. I can't be my true self. I must have to live up to so-and-so's expectations because they're my caregivers. They're bigger, they're older. They must know better than I do. So I'm going to start to live up to their expectations. And that's how I started to wear the mask of people pleaser and perfectionist. I have other masks that I wear as well, but those are my two main masks. They have been a nemesis in my life, and I have worked really, really hard to heal and transform those two patterns / masks.
So how does releasing expectations help you to take off your mask?
As a people pleaser, very hard because I was always trying to live up to mostly my mom's expectations of what she wanted from me. And when I didn't meet her expectations, then there was such a guilt. Guilt is such a controller. The guilt was toxic that I felt. Mm-hmm. And my mother imposed it, not intentionally. She didn't know what she was doing when she did it. She was just repeating a pattern, a generational pattern that she learned from her own mom. And then she carried that out on me and my sister. Full disclosure, taking my mask off, I continue to do that with my own two children until I knew better.
Right.
Until I knew better, right? When we know better, we do better.
Yes. So have you been able to release the expectations from yourself, that perfectionist?
A lot. Yes. Mm-hmm. I've come a long way, but not 100%. And where it still has been showing up for me lately is on social media. I'm still holding an expectation that somehow I need to be perfect. And I was just sharing with you, I just started TikTok only 3 weeks ago, I think. And because I'm not getting the outcome that I desire, there's an expectation that I'm supposed to be perfect at this. And I'm supposed to have 100,000 followers already. Like who thinks that, So there's that expectation of having to be perfect and having to get it all done perfectly, like ASAP. No room for trial and error, no room for growth, like no learning curve at all when you're a perfectionist and having those very high expectations of yourself. Now, in other areas, I have really learned to let go. And even in that area, I can now catch myself, right? I've been doing the work on myself for a really long time. So I'm super aware. And then once I have that awareness, then I can go inward. And this is my process. I go inward. And then it's my little girl that needs that external validation. In fact, this is so funny. I just did a TikTok literally 10 minutes ago about, can I share the story?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it plays into this. So when I was 10 years old, my mom went to a parent-teacher conference. And my teacher said to her, Kim is such a pleasure to have in class, AKA she's really quiet and invisible, doesn't cause problems. She's a pleasure to have in class. She's a good student, but she's capable of so much more.
Mm.
And when he said that, something in me perked up because I was there at the meeting. I was like, oh, okay. So I started to apply myself a little bit more. And then I started to get those really good grades. I would get like 100 on a quiz or a test, and the teacher would write, great job, excellent, you're doing so well, like all this external validation, right? So then that was pivotal for me in my life, because now I learned from his messaging, or that messaging, that if I wanted to be seen and I wanted to be validated, then I needed to perfect and perform. And I had to meet these expectations. And so I learned how to become dependent on external validation. So it's my little girl that even now when I do those TikToks and I compare myself and I say, oh, I don't have the followers that I want to have, or people aren't liking my videos. It's my little girl that's feeling like it's not okay for me to just be me, because that was the messaging that I got at the age of 10. Before that, I was just an average student, just being me. And that wasn't okay. It wasn't okay to just be. I had to be
Right.
performing or perfecting. So when that shows up for me now as an adult, I have to go inward and I have to reparent my little girl and let her know that regardless of how many followers or how many likes I get on TikTok or anywhere else on social media, I am still worthy and I'm still lovable just as I am.
Yeah, it's not easy to release expectation when you have social media, or you're putting any information out there, or any creative endeavor, or any work, actually. I think for me, I have to try to come back to my intention. What is my intention in putting out this video? What is my intention in interviewing this person? Sort of releasing any expectation at all of how it's going to go, how people will receive it. And it's hard. Do you see that in your work as well?
I do. And I also feel like what you just said is really key, because it's about letting go of outcomes,
Yeah.
right? It's about letting go of the outcome. And that's really hard to do when you wear the perfection mask or when you're codependent.
Mhm.
And so it's so important to do that inner work
Mm.
without having, well, first you have to have awareness. Without awareness, there is no change. So you have to be aware, first of all, that that's at play. Like, oh, I'm so attached to this outcome. I have to have X, Y, or Z. Once I'm aware, then I can work on releasing. And then, as you said, that's very helpful to be aware of what's my intention. If my intention is to really just spread a message or to help even one person who may see my work or hear my message, and it's helped one person, then that's so valuable, isn't it? But
Mhm.
it's when you get attached to all the other stuff, like looking at the results or the outcomes. Oh, how many followers today? How many likes today? That's when I get into trouble.
Same, actually. And it's difficult, I think, being a people pleaser and a perfectionist. I think I've given up perfectionism, but I'm, still the people pleaser in me wants, everybody to be happy. The thing that makes it easier is really just realizing, like, okay, it's helpful to set intentions, it's helpful to have goals, but whatever is going to happen was supposed to happen anyway. So that's sort of where I come at it.
When I'm in that space, that wider perspective space, that higher thinking space that you just described so beautifully, that's when I do flow the best. It's when I get into more of that like narrow thinking, and then I become anxious or become fearful, and then I want to control. Whenever we are in fear, lack, or scarcity and feeling anxious, the behavior is always going to be control. How can I control? How can I control? So
Mhm.
when I'm trusting myself and I'm trusting the universe, then I will be able to flow more naturally and accept what comes. And
Mhm.
that is also a really great way of letting go of expectations, because now I'm just flowing. I'm ready to, accept whatever comes because I trust myself and I trust the universe that what is happening right now in this moment is exactly what's supposed to happen for me. And I'm in an abundant mindset versus coming from lack or scarcity.
So do you find it more difficult to release expectations for yourself or for other people?
Myself,
Mhm.
for sure, myself. Now, that being said, have held expectations for my kids for sure, especially when they were young. And now when I do hold expectations for them, when I catch myself, it's not an if, it's always when, because I always do it, is that if I'm holding an expectation for them to be a certain way, again, it comes back to so that it eases my own anxiety. So for example, if I have an expectation that my daughter work enough to make enough money to support herself while she's living in Boston, that's an expectation. I have an expectation that I want you to work so many hours so you make so much money so that you will be able to support yourself, because the opposite of that is that you don't have enough money, you're spending all your money, or now you don't have money for food, and now you're asking me for money. And one, I don't want to have to set boundaries with you because that's going to be really hard because I'm a people pleaser. And two, it's making me really anxious because I don't want to see you in struggle.
Mm-hmm.
None of that is about her. It's all about me, but it's still, that's why I put the expectation on her.
That was hard for me too, really, to let go and realize that they have their own path, right? Other people have their own path. They don't, it's not necessarily my path, and it's not necessarily my job to make sure they have enough food or they're, making enough money, or very difficult, especially, as a mom.
As a mom, it's so hard to let go of any expectations. Now, I don't expect them to be perfect, the way that I put those expectations on myself. I did not expect them to get straight A's in school or to be, the superstar, because that I learned how much suffering went along with that for myself. So I didn't want to impose that on them. But I still did impose other things because again, going back to saying, I just needed to make my anxiety go away. I didn't want to have to worry. So if you just follow what I tell you to do, everything will be fine and you won't struggle, and then I won't struggle.
Right. So that's it. We've gone through our own struggles, and we don't want our children to have the same struggles. To see that they do, for me, that's hard. Because I expect, that you will, take my wisdom and experience and not make the same mistakes. But, that's the hardest, I think. Like, I went through all this trouble, did all this work, had all this suffering, came out the other side, and okay, yeah. So
I'm 100% with you on that one. I'm 100% with you. And what I've found is that, going back to the letting go piece, when I created the podcast over 2.5 years ago, they both actually have listened to some of the podcasts. And so they are learning from me in an indirect way. But if I were to just sit there across from them face to face and say, do this, do that, don't be a people pleaser, don't do this, they wouldn't just tune me out. And just by living by example, by doing my own work and seeing how, they can feel the difference in my energy versus the mom they had when they were 5, 6, 7, 8, even 10, versus the mom that they have now. They can feel that I've done the work and I've made the transformation. I'm not the same mom. Am I perfect? No, I still can go back to putting the mask on, or, going back to an old pattern, but then I laugh, or they'll call me out and say, Mom, you're putting your mask on, take your mask off, and so then we have a little joke about it. I can course correct at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And as we heal ourselves, we heal the people around us anyway, right? Without even trying. So that's a beautiful lesson. So anyway, so great to chat with you today about this.
Too.
And do you have a takeaway that you'd like to leave everybody with about expectations?
Well, and again, the expectations, they piggyback on the perfectionist and the people pleaser, and that's why those masks are born. And I would say, just if there is anything to summarize what we talked about in this whole episode, is it's really about going inward and just trusting and knowing that we are inherently worthy and we are good just the way we are. We're good enough just as is. So that would be my one takeaway for everyone, is to just trust and know that you are good enough just as you are.
Awesome. That's beautiful. So, where can people find you? Where can they listen to your podcast?
Yeah. So Masks Off is on YouTube. Masks Off is also on Apple, Spotify. We're on Anchor. You can always reach me at podcastmasksoff@gmail.com.
Okay. Thanks so much, Kim. It's been a treat.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Take care.